This is the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, and today we are having a great big dose of real talk as we jump into the topic of marketing when you have no money.
Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast on SelenaKnight.com. Stay ahead of the competition by opening your doors to business experts so you can learn, grow, and be inspired. Passionate about bringing business strategies to independent retailers, please welcome your host, Selena Knight.
Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. I'm your host, Selena Knight, and today I am getting out my big teacher stick and I am going to have a really hard talk with you about marketing your business when you have no money. Now, this episode came about when I received an email from one of my subscribers saying that they loved the idea of one of the products that I had on offer, but the effects of the drought in the area where they lived had really hit retailers hard. This person went on to say that they were battling week to week, and whilst they'd love to be part of one of my programs, quite frankly, they just didn't have the budget for it. In fact, they didn't have the budget for any marketing at all. That's a really tough email to receive, and my heart goes out to people who are living in a place where a natural disaster or the climate has affected everybody so much that you struggle to get by every single week. Now, I can't say that I've got personal experience dealing with the emotional and financial stress that comes from a widespread natural disaster or event. And so whilst I can't draw an exact parallel, I'd love to use this episode to share my own personal story with you. A few years into running my first retail store, found myself in a financial crisis. I literally had bills piling up in my office. I had suppliers who had stopped supplying to me until I paid my invoices, and I had used all of my personal savings. Quite honestly, I was working 70 hours a week because I couldn't even afford to have staff at that time. And I remember one day sitting down and opening up my online banking and having a look to see how much money was actually left. And there was only $75 in the bank. Now, sure, my community that I was living in wasn't going through a severe drought. And I really don't want to diminish the social and economic effects of how a natural disaster can affect business and people and your whole mental bandwidth. But when this happened, we were smack bang in the middle of the global financial crisis, and there was no end in sight. Now, suffice to say, like the person who wrote in, I didn't have hordes of people knocking down my door of my physical store or even my online store with fistfuls of cash wanting to buy my stuff. And for days I deliberated over what I should do with that last $75. I rocked between spending it on some advertising or buying some champagne and nibbles for a VIP event in store, or should I try and buy some new stock to have something to promote, or should I pay it off one of my suppliers? I mean, at the end of the day, $75, it doesn't really go very far, does it? Now, ultimately, it didn't matter what I spent that money on. The impact was going to be pretty negligible with just $75, and I was still going to be in this dire financial situation that I currently found myself in. So what did I decide to spend my last $75 on? Well, you're probably not going to believe this. And I'll have to admit, it was a huge gamble for me because I had never done anything like this before in my life. But it kind of seemed like I had to do something with this $75 that could potentially draw me out of this situation. And buying $75 worth of new stock was not going to do that. So instead, I did a load of research and I ended up spending that last $75 by joining a group business coaching program. Now, I know that if you are in this situation right now where you are in dire financial and emotional crisis when it comes to your business, it probably sounds like I am sticking the knife in. You've just told me that you can't afford to come in and do one of my programs. And here I am telling you a story about how I made it a priority with my last $75 to do exactly that. Now, honestly, you know your finances way better than I do. But I want to give you a very different perspective to think over, as well as some marketing tips that you can use in your business that cost absolutely nothing. Before I recorded this episode, I went onto Google and I typed in marketing your business with no money. And do you want to know how many results there were? 1,170,000,000. That is a lot of free strategies that you can use to grow your business with no money. And there were some really cool titles as well. Things like No Money, No Excuse, and 17 Ways to Market with No Money. Effectively Marketing with $0. And these weren't from some fly-by-night companies. We're talking Forbes, Inc., Neil Patel. Neil's been on the show. The dude is a rock star. Big businesses and people who know what they're talking about are out there giving you ideas, giving you strategies on how you can market your business if you have no money. And I'll tell you this for nothing. Most of those strategies that they suggest are the exact strategies that I use with my paying clients. They are actually things that work. Now, I know that what I'm going to tell you, if you're struggling at the moment, may make you feel a bit sick. And you may even think that I'm the biggest bitch on the planet for saying what I'm about to say. There are a lot of free marketing strategies out there on the internet. In fact, over 1 billion of them. And right here, in my own backyard, there are over 300 podcasts on the Bringing Business to Retail show that will give you strategies on how to grow your retail business. But how many of those have you actually implemented? Now, because I am a how-to kind of girl, not going to leave you hanging, I will give you 5 easy free marketing strategies that you can use right now to grow your retail or e-commerce business. Are you ready? Have you got your pen and paper handy to write these down? Number 1, go and pitch yourself to 20 podcasts. Now, you are in business because you love what you sell, right? So use the knowledge that you have accumulated over the years in your personal and in your professional life and put together 3 topics that you know inside out. Once you've got these 3 topics, use them to go and pitch to 20 podcasts. Now, you might be lucky and maybe you'll get on all 20, but I would aim for about 3. And make sure that when you go on that podcast, you deliver loads of great information, but you also have a call to action. You also have an offer that you can give the listeners of that show. So the first way that you can market your business with no money is to go and pitch yourself to 20 podcasts. Number 2, I want you to go back and listen to Christina Nicholson's podcast. We did it just 2 episodes ago, all about how you can get PR for your business without spending money. And then I want you to go and implement everything that she tells you in that episode. She gives away so many strategies that you can do right now for no money at all. So listen to that episode. I'll pop a link in the show notes so you can link straight back to it and you can go and listen to it straight after this episode. And then I want you to draw up a plan of attack and implement exactly what she tells you. So number 1 was to pitch yourself to 20 podcasts. Number 2 was to go back and listen to Christina Nicholson's episode on free PR without spending any money. And number 3 is to send some emails to your customer database. I want you to sit down and compose 3 emails that you could send over the next week, highlighting your brand and your products. And then I want you to schedule them and send them out. It will literally cost you nothing. I don't care if you've got 2 people on that list or 200,000. And I don't want any excuses about the fact that you only just emailed them yesterday or you haven't emailed them for the last 12 months. I want you to go and write 3 emails and schedule them to go out every second day for the next week. The fact is, email is the highest converting return on investment when it comes to marketing your business. And if you are not using that email database to engage with your customers and to boost your sales, then you are desperately missing out on much needed revenue in your business. Okay, number 4. Number 4 is about getting away from the computer and away from your store and heading out to a local meetup or a networking event and introducing yourself to as many people as possible. And whilst you do that, I want you to highlight what it is you sell and where you sell it. It doesn't matter if it's online or if you've got a physical shop. I know that for a lot of people, this is way outside their comfort zone. But the fact is, the more people who know about you, the more chances you have of increasing your customer database and selling more products. When I had my physical store, I pretty much got a customer from every single networking event that I ever went to. And I wasn't overtly pitching. The fact is, if you sell something, there's a pretty good chance that somebody in that room is going to want to buy it. But going and introducing yourself can be really difficult for people, especially if you are an introvert. And I know a lot of you e-commerce owners are an introvert. That's why you have an e-commerce online business, because you don't want to be dealing with people day in and day out. But this one makes a difference. And it will also help you get out of that funk that comes with being in a situation where you do feel like you are in crisis mode all the time. You have to go out there, talk to people, talk about what they're doing in their business. What marketing strategies are they using in their business that you could potentially use in yours? Even today, working from home and having a remote team, I quite often find myself going to networking events and meetups because I crave human interaction. I just want to be able to speak to real people in real life. It's amazing how just going to these events can change your whole mindset. So my number 4 tip is to head out to a local meetup or networking event and introduce yourself to as many people as possible. Now, here's a bonus tip. It's kind of 4B. Let's call it 4B. If you actually have a physical store, offer to hold the next business networking meeting at your store. These events are always looking for space because generally they're free events. So they rely on sponsors or the members to provide the space to hold the meetings. So if you have a physical store, use that to your advantage. Stick your hand up and offer to host the next meeting in your store, which is a great segue to my number 5 tip. And that is to partner with other complementary businesses to hold a pop-up store or even a virtual pop-up store. Now, I actually have 2 of my coaching clients who are doing this right now. One sells homewares and the other sells fashion, and they are in the same town. So one of the businesses actually has a physical store, but it isn't massive. It's probably not big enough to hold 2 stores worth of stock. So they have been super resourceful, and together they've worked out that they will do an evening event and they will use the sidewalk in the little shopping complex. So they've walked around and they've got the permission of the other owners because all the other stores are going to be closed anyway. And they're going to use the communal space to run essentially a pop-up store. This is a win-win. Not only are we kind of combining that number 4 tip of going out and meeting people and connecting with them, but if you can partner with other businesses to hold an event like this, the best part is you get access to everybody else's customer database. So if you have 2,000 people on your customer database and they have 5,000 people, and perhaps you grab another 2 or 3 complementary businesses, you could end up with 20,000 potential customers getting access to this pop-up event. It's kind of a no-brainer, right? And if you have a physical store, then offer to be the person who hosts this event. It is all about thinking outside the box, just like these guys did. The first store wasn't big enough to hold everybody else's items, but they thought outside of the box. They used the resources that were available. They talked, they networked, they spoke to the community, and they found the way around it. And the fact is, there is nothing stopping you from doing this as well. So let's just quickly recap those 5 ways to market your business if you don't have any money. Number 1 was to pitch yourself to 20 podcasts. Number 2 was to go back and listen to Christina Nicholson's episode all about how to get PR for no money and then implement everything she tells you to. Number 3 was to write those 3 emails out and send them to your list over the next week. Number 4 was to get out there and head to a local meetup or a business networking event and introduce yourself to as many people as possible. And number 5 was to partner with a complementary business or more than one business and hold a pop-up store. And if you're an e-commerce business, you can even do this virtually. So let me ask you a question. Why are you using the lack of a marketing budget as an excuse to keep running a completely unsustainable business? If you are tired and overwhelmed and stressed out and not paying yourself a wage, all because you don't know how to market your business with a limited budget, then I'm going to be brutally honest and say you are just not focusing on growing your business. You are not making it a priority. You need to find ways to move past that if you still want to be in business next month or even next year. And saying that you can't do it because you don't have any money for marketing and that you have no customers or your community is in crisis, all of that is just a big fat excuse. I'm really going to go out on a limb here and say that from experience, I know what's actually stopping you is not the fact that you don't have any money. It is confusion. It is exhaustion. 100% it's procrastination. And it's probably a damn lot of overwhelm. So many things to do all in the day. And I get that if you are in this situation, if you are in this dark place right now where it seems that operating on a day-to-day or week-to-week business is the only option, I can 100% sympathize with the fact that sometimes just getting up in the morning is a struggle. And I get that when you're in that place, it feels like you do not have the mental capacity or the bandwidth to come up with out-of-the-box ideas and creative thinking and strategies that could pull you out of that dark place. All of those things, I know that they sound so easy in theory, but when you are operating from that space of fear and crisis, they seem almost impossible. And I get it because that was me. I've been there, caught between doing nothing, that apathy and procrastination that comes from being in that deep pit of despair, and doing everything, putting all your time and energy and effort into doing stuff, but at the end of the day, achieving a whole bunch of nothing. And I tell you this story because all of that was the exact reason why I spent that last $75 on joining that group business coaching program. I needed something, and to be fair, a whole bunch of someones to force me out of that place that I was in. I needed someone to cut through those bullshit excuses that I had become way too comfortable making for myself. And sure, they were real, but eventually they were just excuses. I needed someone to tell me that I was playing small, thinking small, and using that phrase small business as a shield to hide behind and as a scapegoat to blame when my business totally sucked. I needed someone to take me by the hand, even if it was just virtually, and say, I've got your back. I'm here for you. I'm on your side. I'm going to help you get through this. Do this. And when you finish doing it, I want you to move on to the next thing and do this. And then next, we're going to do this. Hey, here are some ideas for you. Here are some out-of-the-box ideas. Have you ever thought about doing? That first month of coaching, I had so much skin in the game. It actually made me feel sick. But there's something powerful about having skin in the game, and that's it. It makes you so determined to get the full value out of any money that you spend. Now, last night, as I was putting the notes together for this episode, I was scrolling through my Instagram feed, procrastinating, and this Gary Vee video came up. And he was saying that when you've got nothing, you've got the advantage. He calls it the advantage of adversity. When you have nothing, you learn to hunt because you've got everything on the line. And when you have everything on the line, You have to make it work. I thought that was just a little bit of woo-woo in my universe, because I was scribbling out some notes for this episode as I was also scrolling through my feed, and that popped up and I was like, wow, that is just so pertinent to this episode that I'm writing right now. Now, that first ever coaching group that I was in, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was called the High Flyer Club, and it was run by my now friend, Natalie Sisson. In fact, Natalie has also been on the podcast in a previous episode. She was the suitcase entrepreneur, and then she had her quest for freedom. She is a freedom pioneer, and she shows people how to get the most out of their life and not be in those crisis situations. But in that first month, I milked that coaching group for all that it was worth. I watched every video that I had access to. I downloaded every single download that Natalie had in that site. I turned up for every accountability session, even though they were at 5:30 in the morning, my time. I remember rolling out of bed at 5:15, putting the kettle on and thanking that they were not video. And I reckon in that first month, I must have asked a million questions. I'm sure Natalie thought I was a complete pest. But you know what? I had no choice. I had to make that $75 back. And I'll admit it, I did. The strategies that she gave me, I put into place. But I also needed to find the next lot of $75 so I could stay in that group. Now, I didn't make a fortune that first month or even that second month. But what I did find was that I was moving forward. I had people to bounce these ideas off. I had access to all this collective information of people from different backgrounds. They weren't retailers. None of the people in that group were retailers. But they all had information that they could share with me to help me grow my business, and in a really unbiased way. And moving forward is a way better place to be than being stuck where you are now. Don't you think? Now, as this episode goes to air, I don't have a group coaching program for you at $75 a month. But my team and I have been thinking really long and hard about this. And we really want to put together a program that is affordable, that is accessible, that does have the knowledge that you need, especially if you are in that crisis mode, if you're feeling like you're in that pit of despair, when you need to surround yourself with other people and just have some out-of-the-box ideas and some creative thinking to help you move from where you are now to even just one step closer to where you want to be. So whilst I don't have it now, it is something that we do have in the pipeline. So if that is something that you need, feel free to reach out to me and my team. You can do it via Instagram, you can send us an email, you can do it on Facebook. And when we put this together, we'll invite you in for a beta test and you can give us your thoughts on this program. As I said, it is still in the brainstorming phase. We need to be able to deliver you great information and that support and that community for a really low investment. And so whilst we're still working it out, I'd love to hear your feedback. What would you love to be included in something like that? What kind of price would you be prepared to pay to have access to that information and to that community and to that support? As I said, hit us up on Facebook, DM us on Instagram, send me an email, however you like. But if you do nothing else from this episode, just take those 5 steps that I've given you today and actually go and implement them. Just pick one and make it your mission to implement that over the next week. And I am sure that you will see results. And make sure you let me know how it all goes. Okay, that is all for me on this Real Talk episode. I know that for some people, it could be a little bit confronting. And I have to say, if you are in that crisis mode, if you are feeling like you have nowhere else to go, please reach out to a free organization such as Lifeline who can give you some support and advice for your family life. And I will see you right back here next week on the next Bringing Business to Retail podcast. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selinaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? you can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selenaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.